Hello and welcome. This is Notibot ENG. Tonight, we're taking a closer look at global politics as tensions escalate in key regions. The United States has imposed new sanctions on Iran, while China's stance on oil purchases remains uncertain. We'll also explore the long-standing strategic concerns for Gulf states over the Strait of Hormuz. Moreover, the war between Iran and its regional rivals is having far-reaching implications for Asia's food security. And in the UN, a heated exchange has erupted between the US and China ahead of high-stakes talks between Trump and Xi Jinping. A development that sent shockwaves through the global energy market is set to significantly impact US-Iran relations and oil trade dynamics with China. The US government has taken further action against Iran, sanctioning 3 Iranian currency exchanges and a Chinese oil terminal. The move is part of a broader effort to pressure Tehran into ending its involvement in the conflict in Yemen and reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The sanctions were announced by the Treasury Department on Friday, targeting the exchanges for allegedly facilitating transactions that help prop up the Iranian economy. These include Bank Sadrat, Bank Mellat, and Bank Aziz. The U.S. claims these institutions are used to launder money and finance Iran's military activities. In addition to the currency exchanges, China's Zhenjiang oil terminal has also been targeted with U.S. sanctions. This facility is owned by the Chinese state-owned oil company, China National Petroleum Corporation, CNPC. The U.S. alleges that CNPC has purchased Iranian crude oil at a price significantly below market value, potentially violating international sanctions. The move is significant because it highlights ongoing tensions between the U.S. and Iran. The Strait of Hormuz, through which nearly 20% of the world's oil passes, remains closed due to concerns over maritime security in the region. Iran has denied any involvement in attacks on oil tankers in the Gulf, but the U.S. claims that Tehran is responsible. The sanctions also reflect the growing rift between China and the U.S. over trade and energy policies. China has long been a key buyer of Iranian crude oil, while the U.S. aims to reduce its dependence on Iranian energy imports. As global attention shifts from the Middle East's maritime choke points, let's consider the crucial routes that Gulf states are now eyeing to maintain energy security. The Strait of Hormuz remains closed 2 months into the Iran war, with vessel traffic at a fraction of its pre-war levels. The patchwork of ceasefires, blockades, and reclosures has failed to restore confidence among tanker operators. This critical trade choke point normally carries around 20 million barrels of crude and oil products daily, as well as roughly a fifth of global liquefied natural gas, LNG, exports. Plans to diversify away from Hormuz have been on the drawing board for decades, but are now being stress-tested. The bypass infrastructure is doing what architects had hoped, providing around 3.5 million barrels to 5.5 million barrels a day of crude capacity. The most important pipeline, East-West Pipeline or Petroline, runs across Saudi Arabia and has a capacity of 7 million barrels per day. However, the loading terminals in Yanbu were never designed to carry this much oil, leading analysts to estimate that less oil is flowing through the pipeline than its theoretical ceiling. Oil bound for Europe still has to cross Egypt via the Sum pipeline, which has a capacity of just 2.5 million barrels per day. The surge in oil flows through this pipeline by 150% since the start of the war has put pressure on European supply. Iran's targeting of Petroline is seen as a significant move, highlighting the geoeconomic importance of the pipeline. With Europe and other countries heavily reliant on LNG imports from Qatar and other suppliers, any disruption to these supplies can have far-reaching consequences for energy markets worldwide. As tensions escalate in the Middle East, a conflict that began with oil is now spilling over into the region's agricultural heartland of Asia. The war between the United States and Israel and Iran has had a ripple effect on the global fertilizer market, with severe consequences for Asia's rice farmers. When the U.S. and Israel launched their military operation against Iran on February 28, it effectively blocked the Strait of Hormuz, a crucial waterway that carries around 1/3 of the world's seaborne fertilizer trade. This has led to a shortage in the global market, with prices skyrocketing. Many countries, including Thailand and Vietnam, rely heavily on imports from the Persian Gulf region for their fertilizer needs. The sudden halt in exports through the strait resulted in a sharp increase in urea prices, which is the world's most common nitrogen fertilizer. Within weeks of the war starting, the price of urea had jumped more than 40%. This has put immense pressure on farmers, who are already struggling to make ends meet. China, the planet's single largest fertilizer producer, has also played a significant role in exacerbating this crisis. Last year, China was responsible for 25% of global output and exported over $13 billion worth of fertilizers. However, in March, China banned exports of several types of fertilizer, crucial to the agricultural industry. The decision by China to restrict its own exports has only added fuel to the fire, further tightening the already strained market. The impact on Asia's rice farmers is severe, with many deciding not to plant this season due to the uncertainty and high costs involved. The decisions made in the next few weeks will determine how much of the world's rice supply yields at the end of the year, making this crisis a pressing concern for global food security. Amidst escalating global tensions, the world remains on edge as a critical choke point in the Middle East continues to hold oil prices at bay. The Strait of Hormuz, a critical waterway connecting Europe and Asia, has come to a standstill due to a naval buildup by Iranian forces, leaving oil prices on the rise once again. According to reports from CBS News World, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, has been deployed in large numbers to the region, sparking concerns among Western powers. This development comes as tensions between the U.S. and Iran continue to escalate, with a potential showdown at sea looming over the oil-rich waters of the strait. The situation is particularly concerning for global oil supplies, as the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most critical choke points in the world's energy infrastructure. A disruption here could have far-reaching consequences for economies worldwide. "This is a powder keg waiting to be ignited," said Admiral David Grills, commander of U.S. Naval Forces Central Command. The Iranian government has denied any plans to block the strait, but its military actions are sending a clear message: it will not back down from its demands. The international community is on high alert, with NATO and other global powers scrambling to respond to the crisis. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has met with counterparts in several countries to discuss the situation and coordinate a unified response. However, so far, no concrete measures have been taken to address the crisis. As the standoff continues, one thing is certain: oil prices will continue to rise until the Strait of Hormuz is secured. We're now turning to a developing story in global relations, where tensions between the U.S. and China are escalating ahead of a crucial diplomatic meeting. Tensions between China and the U.S. are escalating as the leaders prepare for a high-stakes summit in Beijing. The ongoing crisis in Iran has cast a shadow over the planned talks, with Washington's actions sparking widespread condemnation from around the world. U.S. sanctions on Chinese vessels and firms have been met with fierce opposition from Beijing, which claims these measures amount to bullying by the U.S. Fu Song, China's top diplomat at the United Nations, is leading the charge against what he describes as unilateralism, power politics, and some bullying practice by certain partners. The Iran war, launched alongside Israel, has been singled out as a prime example of these tactics. Fu's comments come as Beijing assumes the rotating presidency of the UN Security Council for 1 month. This move is seen as an opportunity to rally support against what China views as U.S. aggression. The sanctions imposed on Chinese companies and vessels are part of a broader package of restrictions aimed at pressuring Iran to back down from its nuclear ambitions. The implications of these actions go far beyond the Middle East, however. They represent a growing rift between two global superpowers with significant military and economic interests. As relations between China and the U.S. continue to deteriorate, the international community is left wondering what other flashpoints might arise in the coming months. The summit in Beijing marks a critical moment in this unfolding crisis, but it remains to be seen whether Washington and Beijing can put aside their differences long enough to find common ground. That's all for today's news recap. I'm your name, your anchor. If you want to stay up to date on the latest global news, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We'll keep bringing you in-depth analysis and expert insights on the issues that matter most. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next broadcast.